Hello, everybody. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be. Looking forward to this one. Really exciting topic. Love to see it. And yeah, hi, everybody. We are going to get started in just a minute or two, so get comfy, get your favorite beverage of choice for this morning or afternoon or evening. Some hot coffee, maybe a tea, soda, whatever you're feeling. Relax, have a great time. We're going to be talking about some cool stuff. So, really excited to be joining y'all today, talking about diversity in tech, which personally is something I'm really passionate about. So, we'll get to chat about things and explain why it's important, how to contribute to it as an individual, and many, many other cool things. Right. Let me share my screen really quickly. And then see if we can go ahead and do this. And not that. There we go. Yeah, awesome. We are just going to go ahead and get started in a little bit. Awesome. So, yeah, looks like my screen's all good. Everything's set on there. So, great. Hi, y'all. Oh, hi, y'all. Today, my name is Kari. I'm here from MLH, and we're going to be talking about creating and maintaining diversity in tech. So, for the content of today, we're going to be doing a couple of important things. First off, we're going to talk introductions. We're going to talk some definitions of diversity, importance of diversity. Then we're also going to talk about barriers to entry, specifically for diverse candidates, diverse applicants, diverse people, stereotypes, bias, representation, and what that actually means. And honestly, pretty striking numbers, in my opinions, as to what diversity actually looks like. Then we'll talk about strategies for creating diversity, mentorship, resources, outreach, and recruitment, what that can look like within your space, wherever diverse space you happen to be creating. Then we'll talk about maintaining diversity, so hiring and promotions, more mentorship, creating and maintaining inclusive spaces. And then we can talk about some examples from my personal experiences, how to build a diverse general focus hackathon, while also working on creating diverse events for communities. So yeah, we're going to start off today's stream with a brief introduction to me. So hi, my name is Kari. I'm an MLH coach, as you can tell from me being on here, but I'm also so much more. I am a woman, cisgender. I use she, her pronouns, but I'm also neurodivergent. I'm an immigrant from Europe, here to the United States, and I'm queer. I'm a student, hackathon organizer, have been a mentor and a mentee, have led committees and been led, interned, consider myself a pretty techie person, have a lot of interest in tech, but I'm also more than that, right? I enjoy knitting, making pottery, mobile development, biking, and cooking new meals. Some parts of my identity, which you can kind of tell from the way I present, are visible. Some of them are something that I have control over, like my hobbies or interests. Some of them provide me some privileges that others don't necessarily have. But some aren't necessarily visible. For example, the way that I speak usually doesn't have people associate me with an immigrant background. I don't have an accent. I don't necessarily, unless I bring it up in conversations because I look the way that I look, usually doesn't come up very often. So that's just one of the ways in which diversity can actually affect us. So the first part is sort of, why am I introing myself? And why did I just give you that 2-minute spiel about who I am and why I like knitting? It's because diversity can and will look different in a lot of different spaces when it is done well. Parts of what makes us diverse as individuals is not always outwardly visible. It's also something that we may not be comfortable sharing. For example, I don't necessarily talk all of the time about my neurodivergence. Furthermore, it's because assumptions are made based on how we look and act. As I was talking earlier, for example, I am an immigrant. because of the way I look and the way I act and the way I speak, that sometimes isn't outwardly present to other people. And so while it makes me relate to immigrant issues and a host of variety of other things, it doesn't necessarily feel like I always belong to specific communities. Now we can talk about what diversity actually is and the definitions word for word of what diversity is, why we care about it, and how we can actually move towards it. Diversity is variations of different characteristics in a group of people. It's everything that makes us unique. Things that can shape our identity, like gender, race, age, religion, cultural background, socioeconomic status, but also the hobbies that we enjoy, the friends that we have and keep and maintain, the relationships that we have, the types of jobs that we hold, the like ways that we spend our free time, and so many other things. Now, if there's so many things that go into diverse individuals, why do we care about creating diverse spaces? And there's a wide variety of reasons. The first one is that diverse spaces reflect societies and demographics more accurately. We live in a world that is incredibly diverse, has a wide variety of people from different backgrounds with completely varied skills and interests and socioeconomic statuses and hobbies and outward presentation and identities and so much more. It allows us to speak to a broader audience, talk a little bit, create some form of relatability factor when we have a diverse team behind us. It also allows us to create more diverse products that fit more into metrics that allow for diversity to happen, but also products that take into account a variety of diverse individuals. For example, let's take something like a period tracking app, right? Traditionally, period tracking apps are developed to be pink, very feminine. However, not all individuals who have periods are cisgender women. There's a wide variety of non-binary individuals, trans men, intersex individuals, or anybody else in between who also might have a period that doesn't necessarily relate to cis heterosexual female marketing. And so the important part of that is that when we're creating something, we make sure that by having diversity, we ensure that those products are more specific towards the group that we target. It allows us to be more creative, and in some cases, if we're talking business, more profitable. Allows us to create products that will reach a larger audience, products that are innovative in their approach of reaching our larger audiences, and hence more profitable. Now, how do we create diversity, or how do we even begin with the process of incorporating diversity? It involves creation, which is having diverse individuals enter tech spaces. Within technology specifically, we'll talk about this later, but there is a big divide in what diverse individuals can accomplish. And maintenance is encouraging those diverse individuals to stay in tech spaces. And we'll also talk about later exactly what happens with that. Because the truth is that diverse individuals, even if they enter tech spaces, are more likely to leave. So let's talk about some barriers to diversity and why diverse individuals are more likely to leave or not even enter the technology space. There's a wide variety of stereotypes in tech, right? First one that I hear a lot actually is tech is only for young people. And I feel like this one is one that comes up a lot in that the technology space is really ageist in a lot of manners. It results in older developers or individuals transferring careers or anyone else in feelings of inadequacy, pressure to leave and find a different job, pressure to potentially even transfer into more managerial positions, what's not necessarily their interest. So many things can cause this pressure, but where it becomes difficult is that if there's more stressors, then people are more likely to leave. So if you have an individual who already doesn't feel like they belong in 2 or 3 of these categories, their pressure is different than an individual that doesn't feel like they belong in just one. Doesn't necessarily make one worse or better than the other. It does make it substantially different. Because another big stereotype in tech is that women cannot succeed. Or even if they can succeed, it's temporary. Or if they did succeed, it's for a variety of factors, not necessarily due to their own skills. The truth is that women are 45% more likely to leave the tech world after just a year of being there compared to the male counterparts. And when we think about it that way, the impact of women on the tech world is really expansive. And women leaving the tech world at such high numbers insinuates there's a problem in the way that we treat women. The same way that there's a problem with the way that we treat older individuals entering tech. Another big stereotype of the tech world is that you have to be a nerd, either studying constantly, working 24/7, always maintaining the learning of the latest technologies, constantly bettering yourself. When in reality, there's a wide variety of opportunities for technologists that don't necessarily view themselves as nerds, don't have an interest in learning constant new technologies not related to their work 24/7, don't enjoy doing traditionally nerdy activities in their free time, like playing video games. Nothing's wrong with playing video games, but there's this, I guess, stereotype that you have to enjoy video games in order, for example, to be a game engineer. The reality is that you really don't. And then this one I added a little bit for fun, but the stereotype is also that, everyone can fit, like every tech person in tech can fix all of your tech problems. I'm sure that plenty of you have gotten the "why is my printer not working" from a family friend or parent or a cousin or anyone else, or some other variation of, "Hey, help me fix this because I don't know how." In reality, there are some tech problems that I can fix because I have, an adjustment to tech and I'm familiar with using a mobile device, for example, so I can help my grandpa set a new ringtone. But I don't have experience in hardware. I can't fix your Raspberry Pi. Maybe somebody else can in the tech world, hardware engineer, maybe if he's familiar with it or if they're familiar with it, but not everyone has the same experiences in tech. Now, let's talk a little bit about bias and how it actually ends up manifesting itself in the tech world. A big one that I've noticed is this idea of past generalizations, specifically that we tend to generalize outcomes and behaviors based on past individuals that we've interacted with. For example, a case like, since X behaved like Y, and Y is similar to X in some way, shape, or form, X is also going to behave like this. This is incredibly harmful when you're dealing with diverse individuals because finding individuals who are diverse is already difficult. And when you write in characteristics and assumptions based on other individuals you've dealt with, you're not giving the chance for the diverse individual to prove themselves as an employee, as a person, as a leader, mentor, whatever role they happen to be in, student, etc. In reality, that means that not having the ability to prove ourselves or coming in with negative assumptions is not necessarily going to help us thrive within those roles. It often means that we are left feeling inadequate. We feel like we're left to fail, or we have assumptions of those who came before us written onto us, but not ever the good ones. At least that's the way that it ends up being. The other one that's really problematic is the idea of inadequate support. So since we don't or can't or won't have a mentor with similar experience, you're going to have to find somebody else. Can't provide you with a mentor that's been in your shoes. The more diverse your shoes are, and the more diverse you are as an individual, the harder it is to find a mentor that you can connect with. Not that it's impossible, because there are a lot of individuals that do similar things, and having mentorship does not necessarily mean you have to have walked the same steps as somebody. However, not having a mentor that you can relate to in any aspect makes it difficult for you to see yourself growing into that mentor. Now, I run a mentorship program, and as a part of our goals, it's to make sure that the mentors that we provide are quote unquote 1 to 2 levels above our mentees. And levels in this case means some arbitrary rung of experience that our mentor is specifically targeting. So, or our mentee group is specifically needing. So, say we have a mentee group that's really interested in learning web technologies. We have within the mentorship program I run and a very talented development team. Let's pull in 2 developers that have experience developing web applications for us to run this section of the mentorship program. Say we have a group of talented female and non-binary mentees who are looking for support from somebody who identifies as a woman and has gone through challenges with experiencing harassment at work. That can be a difficult topic to breach, for example, but it can always help to have someone that can at least imagine your situation or relate to it. Doesn't mean it has to always be a woman, but it can be welcoming to have somebody that looks like you, acts like you, or at least talks like you, be seen in your space. Here's a bunch of stats about what diversity looks like. This is mostly US specific, but 5% of all startups and 5% of all executive roles are held by women. Considering that 27% of the workforce is women, of the workforce in tech specifically, the fact that only 5% of that is in leadership, or the fact that only 5% of our leadership is women, is honestly started. It gets especially worse if you're a woman of color. 4% of tech overall consists of women of color. Contrast that to 16% of the overall US population. That means that women of color in tech are 4 times as likely to be represented. And then, we'll be talking a little bit later about maintaining diversity and why maintaining diversity is important. And the truth is that 52% of women, or 52 women, are promoted for every 100 men in the tech field. What does that mean? Women are more likely to get passed up for a promotion. So they climb the corporate ladder slower, are less likely to get to executive roles, less likely to take the plunge to be startup founders, or potentially take the plunge to make a lateral move in a job. They have less financial security because they climb the corporate ladder slower, have less ability to grow technically because they tend to spend a similar amount of time in the same job, and hence have a harder time adjusting to maybe potentially a growth when it does come. Now, we can talk money, right? So the average salary in the tech world for a white man in the United States is currently $90,600. The average salary in tech for a Latino man is $73,000. The average salary in tech for a white woman is $66,200. And the average salary in tech for both Black and Latino women is $57,000. When we contrast that with the average salary of Asian men, which I did not include on this slide, but I remember because it was startling, of $103,000, you can see the massive divide in tech inequity in salaries. So what does that mean for us? It means that women, people of color, are less likely to have financial security. That means they're less likely to take risky career moves, leave jobs that are more stable for startup opportunities, for example, found startups. They're less likely to maintain some form of comfort, less likely to, consider big career leaps or changes, less likely to be more aggressive in job searches or promotions in fear of losing the money that they already have. Now, yeah, what does that mean? It makes it harder for you to find employment that is sustainable for you, whether that means having a livable wage to having a comfortable wage to having a luxury wage, right? Not that, anyone, like, not that technology is necessarily known as a field that doesn't pay a lot, but when you're contrasting 57,000 with 90 or 94 or 103, those numbers are completely different, no matter whether you live in San Diego, Nashville, or rural Wisconsin. The other issue then is maintaining employment, right? When you are negotiating, for example, for a different position, you can often use your previous position as technical leverage. If your previous position has already started you off at a lower financial backing, well, then you're already in for a harder negotiation if you're trying to get to the same salary. You're also struggling a little bit more, say, to maintain employment in having the opportunity to ask for a more competitive raise or ask for additional responsibilities and a promotion. What that means then, that it's harder to climb the corporate ladder, right? It's harder for you to make a jump or a lateral move when you're negotiating from a lower point. It also makes it harder for you to deal with a wide variety of issues, such as asking for bonuses, stock options, relocation, anything else in between, benefits, healthcare, vision insurance, anything in between, medical coverage, paid time off. There's so many things that are limiting due to the already lower quote unquote standard that we start out with. And, there's always a variety of explanations that women are less likely to be in senior roles, which is what accounts for them being paid less, right? They're less likely to be in senior roles. So on average, they're making less. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Maybe women tend to live in lower cost areas if they are working. Potentially. There's a wide variety of factors, and those numbers are obviously averages, and averages don't always translate much. But they can point us to bigger issues within this world, specifically how it is impacted by the way that we act and behave. So now let's talk about creating diversity and what we can do as individuals to maintain those resources. The first thing that I want to talk about is the power of advocacy and mentorship. So I mentioned really briefly earlier, but I run a mentorship program as a part of my university. And one of the things that we really like to focus on is making sure that mentorship is a key part of that program. Making sure that the mentors and the mentees are made with intentional matches behind them, that groups are diverse, that both our mentor and mentees consist of diverse individuals that are looking to grow themselves. An important part of mentorship that is often misremembered is that mentors also grow and learn from their mentees. So having the ability to create meaningful mentorship also comes to giving your mentors the learning opportunity to improve as mentors, to have different experiences as mentors, and then to become better mentors, whether it's in your program or not. I think that's really critical for creating good communities and creating a good space for all of us. Now, the other thing that we can do for creating diversity is resource outreach for a wide variety of individuals. We can gather information and support about different means in which we can support individuals with a wide variety of diverse backgrounds. For example, conferences like NSBE, right? Or NSBE. Great opportunities to have individuals who come from a similar racial background, who are interested in similar working spaces, engineering here specifically, allowing for them to have a space to connect, create, and that comes alongside providing spaces for communities. Having something like an NSB or an NSB campus chapter, right? Can go a really long way in creating a space for that community to grow, thrive, have an overall better experience. It also goes alongside actually creating meaningful change. And that means that your resources are utilized, are helpful, are beneficial, and are overall a great way to expand on opportunities. And finally, it's continuing efforts. It's making sure that any resources that we start or build or maintain are actually kept up, that any spaces that we create are maintained, that any mentorship programs we fund or start or participate in don't disappear the moment a calendar hits a certain week or month. Forming those connections, creating those opportunities is a huge part of the community and of creating diversity. And it goes alongside maintaining that diversity as well. The long-term goal for maintaining diversity is to make it a worldwide effort. Diverse talent is everywhere. It's all around us, however near or far we happen to be. Making sure that we are giving different and equal opportunities to a wide variety of individuals is really critical, to be honest. It's about fairness, bringing efforts outside of your own bubble, and expanding what you've already done to other spaces. That can be incredibly important in actually making an impact outside of the few spaces that you happen to be in physically. So what can students do to promote and maintain diversity efforts? You can promote DI efforts of other organizations than the ones that you're involved in. Say, for example, you're a part of Women in Computing and you would like to advertise an event hosted by the National Society of Black Engineers. Great way to promote inclusivity efforts of other organizations, make sure that diversity isn't just an afterthought. We also have keeping track of current efforts, issues, and trends within your space. Whether that is, say, keeping track of the diversity metrics within classes on campus, keeping track of the percentage, say, the ratio of women of color in intro-level computer science to the ratio of women of color who receive their diploma at graduation. That can be a really telling metric of whether your maintenance efforts are working. So the reality is a wide variety of women are being attracted to computer science. Wide variety of people of color are being attracted to computer science. Neurodivergent individuals, individuals with visible or invisible disabilities, queer individuals, anything else in between. That means that, but it matters about whether those efforts are actually seen. We can also provide support as mentors and engage in programs as mentees so that they continue to stay alive. It's important to be a part of mentorship, not just for the personal benefits, but for the benefits that it can provide others. Mentorship is a great way to have a wide variety of access to different networks that you might not necessarily interact with. Providing good community spaces, engaging in programs, and having an overall beneficial experience is really important. Another thing is honestly just to dream big. If we imagine diversity as an ongoing effort and we imagine our ideal scenario in which everyone feels equitable and included, we can see a great world and we can work towards actionable steps to actually achieve it. Another key part that I think we miss often is making sure to make all spaces inclusive, not just diversity-specific spaces. A lot of efforts within organizations sometimes go to creating something like employee resource groups. And that means that you are making your spaces inclusive by creating bubbles of comfort, safety, approach for those individuals. That's not necessarily ideal because it makes it a lot harder for individuals that might not necessarily feel like they fit into that space, or say individuals that struggle with any identity. For example, say you're a non-binary individual entering technology. You don't necessarily relate to branding of women in computing. Obviously, you can recognize the importance of that organization, while also thinking it might not necessarily be what you're looking for. But by not making all spaces inclusive, we are depriving many individuals of the chances to feel included in all spaces, not just those who might have a diversity that isn't met in a specific way, but also those that have different diversities, that have an intersection of different diverse backgrounds, that have interests or hobbies that might not necessarily align with some sort of arbitrary definition of them as people. And then I think this is the most crucial one, is make sure that any efforts you create are actually maintained in the long term, that you are having individuals who are passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion, a wide variety of metrics that are following those steps, that you are maintaining any growth efforts over the long term in order to ensure that the spaces that you create are meaningful. Let's talk a little bit about my experience and some of my stories. So let's talk about personal efforts in DEI, right? As a part of my university, I'm currently organizing scholarships for the Grace Hopper Conference in 2023, or in 2023. If you're not familiar with Grace Hopper, it's the largest gathering of women and non-binary tech individuals in the world. It is an incredible resource, personally one that I've taken advantage of last year, and due to, honestly, financial barriers to entries, it's really inaccessible to a lot of students at my university. So one of my goals for this year is gathering scholarship support, organizing groups for mentorship so that students can have a resource to talk to once they're attending the conference. Ensuring equitable access to resources is a key part of this. For example, accounting for financial need within our application interview process, making sure that the individuals who are receiving scholarships, or those that need those scholarships, that individuals have access to financial means and have a great way to become a part of this conference that can be life-changing, but is often blocked by financial barriers. Another thing that I've done is mentorship at Vandy Hacks. It's expanding the pool of hackathon organizers and providing technical involvement outside of our events. To me, what that means is creating a meaningful mentorship program that takes into account a variety of different students, that takes into account individuals who are hackers or organizers or mentors or interested in being judges in the future, individuals who are just starting in the tech world, to those that have at least a plan of what they want to do after graduation, right? Students interested in academia, in research, in big tech, finance, pharmacy, and healthcare, wearable technology, hardware, and anything in between. It's making sure that those programs cater to their interests, that the mentors are well-trained, well-equipped, and willing and able to thrive. And finally, having the ability and the opportunity to actually provide them with the support that I can provide as an organization. To me, that usually means making sure that my mentors are well-trained, that they feel prepared for every meeting that they have, and that also they have resources from me, whether they want to give out snacks at an event or need a Creative Cloud subscription to teach somebody how to make a design. Those are all very important aspects of mentorship. It's also the personal aspect of it, making sure that my mentors are feeling confident, happy with the work that they're doing, feel like their work is meaningful. Their mentees are attending meetings, contributing, and also being helpful individuals, that they feel like their voices are being heard for what they want to learn, and the mentors feel like what they're actually saying is being heard. And those are some, I think, examples personally that are great for college students or even high school students worldwide. Having the opportunity to create diverse spaces and also incorporating diversity into various spaces is really important. For example, over at my hackathon specifically, we previously used to be very male dominated. It wasn't something that we were necessarily proud of, but we want to ensure that we want to ensure that we were taking the best talent. But what ended up happening over time is that our talent became more diverse. And how did our talent become more diverse? To the point that our most talented applicants were women and women of color and non-binary individuals and individuals with invisible disabilities or neurodivergence. It was about giving them the space to shine, about creating technical and non-technical opportunities for those individuals who might not be sure about technology or were struggling with tech, to have a space for them to explore technology, to provide them with opportunities like, a fireside chat with women in computing or professors in computer science, to providing them with strong female mentors, whether they were, presenting about their careers in tech outside of graduation, their internship opportunities, or anything else in between, talking through technical projects, learning new things. All of those can be incredible resources for all sorts of individuals. And I think it's important to recognize that diversity efforts don't end. And now that we have, at least on my side, an incredibly diverse team, the goal is to make sure that team feels included, that team feels like a part of the bigger picture, that they feel, like they're contributing, that they never feel left out or confused or not necessarily a part of the bigger picture, right? And that means maintaining those efforts. And to me, that's critical in creating a good community. And it goes a really long way in having good experiences and making those good experiences available to all. Yeah. As you can see, I've been on my Think slide for a couple of minutes. So we are actually, a little bit ahead of schedule for here, but this is everything that I plan to talk about, which is awesome. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but stay on for a minute or two if anyone has any questions. I'd love to chat. If not, no pressure to ask anything, but I do want to say that I hope you have a wonderful rest of your morning or afternoon or evening or night, wherever you happen to be tuning in to this MLH stream form. And I really enjoyed talking about, my efforts, my experiences, my skill sets, and sort of my previous and current and, continuing efforts, and how I think that can translate to bigger communities and the tech world as a whole. So thank you all for joining very much. I really, really appreciate it. It was great just getting to chat about all of these. Like I said, it is time for Q&A, but do not feel pressured to ask any questions at all. And if, there isn't anything, then we'll just wrap up a couple minutes early and let you get a chance to, get some water, get a snack, get some rest, whatever you might need today. Alrighty, awesome. In that case, I'm going to go ahead and head off. But everybody, it was amazing to be able to get to chat about this. Like I've said, 3 times now, but I'm really looking forward to, my next Global Hack Week stream, which is tomorrow. If you are going to be around tomorrow from, I think it's 8 to 10 Eastern time, I'm actually going to be talking about mobile app development and designing an application specifically for those who are blind or close to have very profound vision loss. And we're going to be talking about accessible design. We're going to be talking about accessible development, some features that you can use for mobile native development, specifically with accessibility. And then, yeah. All right, awesome. I see a quick question. It says, I came just around the end. Would this advice work for middle school to high school female students? I think absolutely. I think, first off, it is never too late to start working towards diversity. First off, because diversity in middle school and high school is incredibly important in tech spaces, because individuals are discovering tech when they're younger and younger and younger. And so at this point, in my personal experience, by the time you come into college, there's a lot of individuals that have experience from high school or from even middle school that are, excited and thrilled about tech and can tell you about all of their interests. And sometimes that can feel really exclusionary. It can feel like you're not necessarily a part of their group or clique or team because, well, you don't have all this experience that they're talking about. You don't know what they're saying, really. And you just found tech or computer science because it sounded interesting. And so I think for me, it's never too late to start in those efforts. And also, I personally had amazing mentorship in high school. And it was one of the reasons why, despite, some of the difficulties that I faced in my, early college years, I was a pandemic student, so that made things a lot harder. Despite, a lot of the difficulties that I faced then, it's what made me stick with technology. It's the support of those mentors that I could lean back on, months even after I'd left their spaces, or years at some point. Having that ability, to me, I think is incredibly, incredibly useful, and allows for me to see a whole variety of different things. And I think that comes down to diversity too. I think that, it's never too late to consider starting a Girls Who Code chapter or some other Girls Who Code, or, Women in Tech, or any other diversity org, if that's something that you feel like a larger community might benefit from. Or it's never too late to have a female team come to your hackathon and try and work on some sort of project that seems exciting and interesting and riveting. Or say, you're working with specifically like women of color, right? It's creating those spaces and those spaces of inclusion, and understanding also how intersectionality affects us, right? And how it's difficult, how it's hard for women, and how it's hard for people of color, but it's harder for women of color in some aspects. And so those things I think are all really important to consider. And yeah, I think anything that you can do in terms of diversity is useful, no matter how early or late you are in your tech journey, whether you're just starting or, vet at this point. You've been around for 20, 30 years, or 2 to 3 days. Totally okay. All right. Awesome. I don't think I'm seeing any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here, but thank you all for coming by. It was awesome to hear from y'all. And I hope you have, perfect. Another question. Is there anywhere we could find mentors and mentorship outside University of Schools? Yeah, so I actually had a really great time, honestly, finding mentorship through a lot of female-led organizations. So, for example, I'm a part of Rewriting the Code, and they actually have a mentorship match program where you could get matched to a wide variety of different mentors with different experiences. So they could come from different schools or universities, and Rewriting the Code is, for example, college student specific, but there's a wide variety of different organizations that focus on high schoolers. Specifically, one that I know about is, for those that are, personally, I'm a cisgender woman, so I tend to stick with specifically female organizations, or those that foster female involvement, as I don't really necessarily fit into spaces meant for Latinas or Black women in any way, shape, or form. But I would say that it's a great, Rewriting the Code is a great start. Code with Clossy, if you're in high school specifically, is another fantastic resource. They have a lot of really cool resources. Girls Who Code is naturally very well established and incredible at providing guidance, mentorship, and tech opportunities to, people around the world. Honestly, a lot of even female specific orgs can often have partnerships with technology. And so something like Girl Scouts, for example, could be great at finding mentorship or finding resources within that larger tech space. And so I think that's another great thing to consider within that. Awesome. Alrighty. Let's see if there's any other questions. If not, that is okay too. Thank you so much for asking. I really appreciate it. All right, we got another question. That's, how do you stay motivated with the lack of inclusion in the market right now? Personally, I just had a conversation with one of my mentors about this personally, and we were talking about how there's a wide variety of different resources, right? And there's a wide variety of different companies that are affected in different ways, right? For example, big tech is currently really affected right now. And it can be really difficult if that's sort of your long-term goal to see some of your mentors or your mentors' mentors suffering due to, some of the experiences that they're dealing with, whether it's organization reshuffling or losing their job, anything or everything in between. I think, it's very important to, at least in my opinion, keep an open mind. There are a lot of different paths and career trajectories to get you to your ideal location. Personally, I've gone through, even in my very short time right now as a woman in tech, I've gone through a couple of different iterations of what I actually wanted to do. And being able to keep an open mind has helped me reinvigorate my love for mobile development. And it's helped me land one of my dream opportunities through keeping an open mind, through maintaining some of the skills that I had for previous years, to, making sure that I was involved and consistent and able to do things, and constantly and staying active. But it wasn't just because I was like, oh, I feel the need to stay active so I can land a job. It was because I was genuinely interested in the things that I was learning. And it's hard to find that balance, right? It's hard to be like, oh, I'm genuinely interested in learning X, Y, and Z, because sometimes it can come off like incredibly, lucky. And I do realize that there's a lot of ways in which I am privileged and lucky, right? I think that a wide variety of opportunities come from different tech spaces and different ways in which we can stay motivated by supporting each other. I think that is also a really big part of it. Finding individuals that have had different experiences, completely different trajectories, a wide variety of opportunities is really crucial to creating good spaces and creating, making sure you stay internally motivated, if that makes sense. There's a lot of external motivation in tech thrown at us, right? Whether it's high salaries or incredible work-life balance or fancy offices with sleeping pods or whatever else in between, right? There's a lot of things that are thrown at us that way in a variety of different ways. But for me, at the very least, it's about knowing that whatever happens is going to be a step of my journey. And times can be easier, harder, better or worse, but I have what I've always had, which is myself and my health and my well-being and my support system, right? Whatever that looks like in that moment, whether it's my family or my close friends or significant others or anything else in between, right? So having those opportunities and people to rely on, and whether that comes from like a set-aside career mentor, right? That's really important. Because, our journey can look different. And, we might lose something or things might not go perfectly along the way, right? But we'll have an opportunity to bounce back in some way, shape, or form as long as we believe in ourselves. And even if our journey ends up being completely different than we expected, doesn't necessarily make it any better or worse, right? If somebody has asked me 6 months ago if I was here, if somebody asked me 6 months ago if I saw myself here, I would have said they were insane. And if somebody had asked me 3 years ago, I would have also said they were insane. But I think I would have thought it even more, right? So it's like those opportunities and being able to stay on course and believing in yourself, but also relying on those around you is really important. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I can offer. All right. There's one last question that says how you cracked the MLH fellowship. I'm not a fellow, I'm a coach. So I go around, I support hackathons nationwide, and then I also do Global Hack Week streams personally. We have a lot of very talented fellows and a lot of very talented full-time teams on staff here at MLH, but I'm not one of them. I just help support. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you for asking questions. I really, really appreciate it. It's super helpful. But yeah, awesome. Any other questions that I can answer while we're still here? how we get how do we get where you are right now? Honestly, like sometimes I get this question and I always laugh a little bit. Honestly, because if getting to where I am right now should not be your goal. Your goal is to get to be a better version of yourself. Um, for me, as a person, I never imagined myself or my personal trajectory to look like this, right? Whether it's, organizing hackathons and then becoming involved in the community, or reinvigorating my passion for mobile development, to getting my dream opportunity. Like, all of those are just things that like I accomplished, but they weren't necessarily like goals that I had in mind. There were specific people that I admired, or like obviously I had goals and ambitions, right? And I was like, I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. And back in high school, it's like I would love to do mobile development at some giant tech company. And while I am doing mobile development or something pretty much close to it, at a company, I'm thrilled about it. It's not about like, it's not a journey that I could suggest, right? It's not, every journey has its ebbs and flows. Mine is included. Like, say for example, you're looking at somebody like in terms of their experiences, right? And you see that they've gotten their dream internship, right? Like, that's, I'm guilty of this, right? I said, I have my dream internship. I'm thrilled about it. I'm really looking forward to it, right? I'm not going to talk about the multiple stages of interviews and the multiple teams that I got rejected from first, right? I'm not going to talk about the different experiences that happen. I'm only going to share my success. I'm going to share my failures with those around me. My roommate's going to hear me cry about how I'm on my 7th round interview and I still haven't heard anything. And how does it take so long for them to deliberate? And I'm tired. And then going to hear me complain that I didn't get anything and get frustrated and mad. But that's not the part that I'm going to share with everyone. And I think that's really important to keep in mind, is that everyone's going to share their successes. Not everyone's going to share their failures with you. And so keeping in mind that you are only seeing the sliver of a person, and you have your own journey and your own trajectory, and it's hard to compare yourself to anybody else because you are your own person. And like we talked about with diversity, right? You're your own person. You have your own skills and hobbies and interests, and that makes you unique, whatever you happen to look like. Some of those are visible, some of those are not. And you have your own challenges, stuff that I don't really know. So yeah, that's a big part. All right. Question: how is it to be a coach? How was the process? I am very new to coaching. I just started a couple months ago. I am loving it so far. It's a great opportunity to explore different communities, have a great time, interacting with a wide variety of spaces, and also have a good time just like talking through different challenges, getting to explore different areas, learn something new at every opportunity, or learn something good at every stream learn something new with every stream that I'm doing, right? Those are all great ways for me to have an impact on my communities that I'm going to be involved in moving forward, or even like events that I go to or streams that I do. So it's like, those are really important things, I think. As for the process, honestly, I thought it was very reasonable. I had a great time when I interviewed with everybody for the coaching program. They were all amazing. It's the reason why I chose, to actually accept the opportunity and join. And so that's a really great part of it. All right. I just started coding. Like, give me a small roadmap or something that will help me in my journey. I think the best advice that I can offer is, everyone has their own different interests and hobbies and skills. And something that personally really helped me was having the opportunity to work on projects. So I am personally a very like task-driven person. So I like making actionable, tangible projects. And so what got me started in computer science and like how I found tech to begin with was getting to watch a tic-tac-toe game that somebody had developed at like a little like Club Expo fair. And that was a great opportunity for just to get me to see something. Everyone works differently. Somebody will work better with a structured tutorial, in which case there are tons of languages that you can use. And then for some can work better with, individual like projects that you're working on, learning things along the way. Whatever that looks like to you, I don't know how you learn, so I can't provide any advice there. But I would say that whatever your learning style is, whatever your tech interests are, there are plenty of resources for you somewhere out on the interwebs. And so they're great to get started. One last question: is coaching at MLH a volunteer type of work? For me, this is a part-time job. So I work at MLH part-time as an employee, if that kind of answers your question. But yeah, awesome. We are almost out of time, and I want to make sure that the next live stream has plenty of time to prepare and get ready. So I am going to go ahead and head off. But thank you so much for joining me for this discussion of diversity, tech, and inclusion. Somebody just really quickly asked about the rewards. The check-in link is in the Discord under Global Hack Week. I posted a little announcement. The check-in link is there. I am going to head off, but thank you so much for joining me for the discussion of diversity, equity, and tech, and then also, different opportunities. And I'm really excited to see you all at my next stream, potentially tomorrow from 8 to 10 Central, or not Central. Oh my gosh, 8 to 10 Eastern, if you're there. Awesome. Thanks, y'all.